Guys, Torino22 is out. It's a year after the launch of Torino21, and Torino21 was a favorite of mine from Xerjoff. In fact, all this year I featured it in countless videos. In fact, I introduced it to a friend who's madly fallen in love with it. I fell in love with it. I thought it was a great fragrance, and I liked the combination of mint with citruses. And even though there's no tea note in the fragrance itself, for me, when I wear it, it reminds me of mint lemon tea, because it's a citrus mint combo, citrus aromatic fragrance. So it's a great smelling fragrance with a major coziness about it, very smooth. So Torino22, I've been wearing it here and there. You know, it does remind me of Torino21. It's a little different. And I'm going to tell you all about this one and what it smells like to you, and then also compare it to Torino21. So Torino22 review plus a comparison of Torino22 with Torino21 coming right up. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Sebastian. Yeah, today I'm talking about Torino22 from the house of Xerjoff. It comes a year after Torino21 was launched last year. As I said, Torino21 was one of my favorite citrus fragrances, and I like the aromatic notes combined with citrus notes, and it was a lemon bomb pretty much for me with a major dosage of mint. And the lemon in that fragrance was not necessarily sharp, tart, sour. It was very smooth and balanced, and I really liked its coziness, and it felt like, or at least to me, it reminded me of lemon mint tea. So Torino22 is out now. Have you gotten your noses on it? In fact, I should say, are you a fan of Torino21? And if you are a fan of Torino21, are you curious to sample Torino22? Let's go ahead and open this up. But Torino22 is a 50 ml for 180 euros. There is a 15 ml version of it for 65 euros. And once again, it's a citrus aromatic fragrance. And it features notes of bergamot, saffron, and eucalyptus up top. Heart notes is Clary, sage, mate, and Guaiac wood. Base notes, musk, dry woods. And if we compare it to the notes for Torino21, Torino21 features notes of mint, lemon, basil, thyme. Heart notes features jasmine, rosemary, lavender, blackcurrant. Base notes features musk and verbena. So that fragrance had a very lemony vibe, and even though this Torino22 definitely has citrusy vibes, it's not lemony like the last fragrance. So let me go ahead and open this up and show you the bottle, because the bottle seems pretty much the same to me right here. And for some reason, I thought Join the Club's fragrances, they did not announce the notes, but I did find the notes on the website for Xerjoff, so they're definitely there. So this is Torino22. It's very similar to Torino21 bottle, and I think they're gonna do this series of fragrances for several years from what I remember. Last year I was not able to attend TFWA in Cannes, and I was able to talk to Sergio Momo of Xerjoff, and I believe he had mentioned that there will be several of these Torino fragrances. So I'm assuming there will be Torino23. So here is Torino21, and this is Torino22. So for me, I felt a little underwhelmed with Torino22. I don't know why, because it reminded me of the style of the previous fragrance. So I felt like I've already gotten the Torino22. I really, really love it. And this can't compete with that fragrance, if that makes sense. But for me, it's a blast of citruses up top, and then of course eucalyptus as well. But for me, I don't get a lot of eucalyptus with this one. Perhaps there's a little bit of a bitter greenness from the eucalyptus, but it's a very smooth citrus once again. So you've got a very cozy citrus. And again, this time, you're definitely noticing it in comparison to Torino21. You notice the lemoniness in Torino21, but you have a little more of a softer citrus in Torino22 because of the difference between the bergamot and the lemon. And once again, going back to Torino21, the lemon in that was not sour, tart, astringent, and things like that. It was a very balanced lemon. In fact, for me, as I say, it felt like tea. I've had tea with mint and of course lemon in the cup, and the lemon becomes not so sour. It kind of like loses its astringency. So I felt like that's the kind of lemon I was wearing when I wore Torino 21. So with the Torino 22, it's a lot softer citrus. It's not as distinguishable. It's also a bit floral because Bergamot seems to have a bit of a floralcy to it. And that's pretty much what I get up top. I don't get a lot of the saffron, maybe perhaps tiny bits of it. And then of course the same thing with Eucalyptus. But it's what happens in the heart that kind of throws me off a little bit, and I'm come to realize after testing this fragrance out, Torino 22, that I'm not the biggest fan of mate. And this fragrance has a pretty big dosage of mate. I mean, I like mate in fragrances like Tempo by Diptyque because it's patchouli and it kind of works really great with it, but here the mate stands out big, and it's got this kind of earthy leafiness and of course greenness in this fragrance for this note. Plus, of course, once again I get a tea vibe from this fragrance, Torino 22, but this time we actually have a tea-like note of the mate here, whereas in Torino 21 we did not have it, and I got that same kind of tea vibe here. I got the mate note, and of course I'm getting it again as well, but it's not as soft. It's a bit more rougher, and I think it's the mate, that earthiness, that kind of greenness, this leafiness, this bitterness of the mate note that's pretty prominent here. So for me, I felt like Bergamot is pretty prominent up top, mate is pretty prominent in the heart, and I've got lots of musk here in the base notes with woods. It's a very woody fragrance, but it's also just very, very citrusy, very juicy, but not lemony like the last fragrance. And of course also the mate, it's got that very earthy green leafiness from that note. So I mean, I should say I'm a little underwhelmed with this fragrance because it kind of reminds me of the original, but it's not as good as the original, if that makes sense. But it's still a great fragrance. It's just something I've smelled many times before, so it I kind of don't have that excitement for Torino 22 because I have something that I love the way it smells much more in Torino 21 in comparison to Torino 22, if that makes sense, you guys. But I think you should get your nose on it. I think it's a classy fragrance. It seems a tad bit leaning masculine as well, and also there's a bit of a reminder in there of something like a masculine, maybe citrusy fougere type of a fragrance style here as well. So I feel like this will be popular with men who like these kind of fragrances, citrus aromatics. But for me, if I had to choose between the two, I'd definitely go with Torino 21 because I love it so much. I love its coziness. That mint and lemon together in that fragrance is just beautiful and very, very magical, and I love the combination, and they've done a great job with that combination. And up to that point, when Torino 21 had come out, I knew that there was another fragrance kind of sort of similar, Renaissance, which has that mint and citrusy touch. But wow, when Torino 21 came out, I completely ignored Renaissance and went right to Torino 21 because it's just a really beautiful blend of the lemons and the mint, and it has a great longevity as well for some reason. And this one seems to have a longevity as well, but for me, when I was testing and comparing the two, I feel like with Torino 21, it does project more. It has this thickness about it and the staying power about it. With Torino 22, it was a little more of a subtle, it had a subtle experience and a bit closer to the skin in comparison to Torino 21. So it's a bit underwhelming for me, but I feel like it'll find its audience. But if you've already sampled Torino 21, I think you might be a bit underwhelmed with Torino 22. So anyway, those are my thoughts on these two fragrances, especially Torino 22, because it just came out. Still a big fan of Torino 21. Let me know if you're a fan of Torino 21, if you've sampled it. If you haven't sampled Torino 21, you're going right to Torino 22. You might, dig it a lot, but I highly recommend you try Torino 21 because that for me is my favorite of the two, and I feel like the lemon mint combo in that fragrance is very, very magical and just really, really beautiful. Again, not really breaking any new ground with either of these fragrances, but I felt like Torino 21 was perfect the way it was done. That's why I really love it. And of course, as I said, I've introduced it to several friends. Everyone seems to love it, and I've got one friend friend who keeps wearing it over and over and over, and that's all I smell when I get together with them. So anyway, those are my thoughts for these two fragrances. If you have any questions or comments, please do list below. Do let me know if you've sampled Torino22. Let me know if you're a fan of Torino21. And after hearing this review, will you sample Torino22? Do let me know, put a comment down below. Either way, guys, thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions or comments, please do list below. Please like this video, please share it. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye. Guys, I should also say Torino22 reminds me a little bit of the now discontinued Louis Vuitton Cactus Garden. It's discontinued, and I know there are some fans of it out there. Some of you were mentioning that you'd like to find an alternative. And this is what I have. I've stored it away. I had to pull it down for this just because it reminds me, or Torino22 reminds me of Cactus Garden. And it's because Cactus Garden has that very prominent note of mate. This is mate with lemongrass, and I think there's another note, could be a musk of some kind. But for me, when the mate is prominent here, like when it's in the heart stage, it really does remind me of Cactus Garden. And I think because I had a kind of a love-hate relationship with Cactus Garden, I'm probably thinking it's the same reason here. I like mate in some fragrances and I don't like it in others, because for me it's a bit of a musty, earthy smell with a tea kind of a surrounding to it. So it not only has a tea vibe, but there's something odd about the smell that I'm not really clicking with it too much. So I experienced the mate here a lot, and I feel like it's the most prominent note next to the bergamot note and also the musk in here. So that's why I felt like it wasn't as unique and very interesting like the original Torino21. So I mean, I've already got a favorite here. It's Torino21. You might actually fall in love with Torino22, and if you're looking for an alternative to Cactus Garden, you might check out Torino22. They're not identical, but for me, when it was in the stage of the mate note in the heart, it reminded me or hinted at Cactus Garden. Just wanted to point that out to you guys just in case. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Stay tuned for another video tomorrow. Bye-bye.